Hello here and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online show. What do they call this, Steve Sipple and Robin Washington? The dog days of January, February, where we're kind of, recruiting doesn't have near the excitement this time of year as it once did. Basketball's kind of in this period where they've still got a lot of work to do before you can really start thinking about potential postseason opportunities. And we're before baseball, we're before softball. So here we are. It's the dog days, but we're going to give it hell on the Husker Online show.
We're right on the cusp of baseball and softball. And Nebraska basketball is pretty heated right now, actually.
Hoops are right in the thick of it.
Yeah, they're in the thick
Winter
of it.
conditioning is closed off. And
They haven't started the mat drills yet, though.
Okay.
The mat drills.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think
I never know exactly what we're talking about.
they start those up after the coaches get off the road recruiting. Is the coaching staff, so I would imagine next week they would begin the mat drills. I don't know that for sure yet, but they begin those, and Coach Rule leads the mat drills. The assistant coaches are a part of the mat drills. So you'll start getting the Corey Campbell videos and, guys pushing sleds in the snow and Nash Hutmacher. I guess he's wrestling right now, but Nash Hutmacher squatting with 25 guys around him videos coming out here soon.
We need some of that.
Some raw meat.
Yeah, we need some raw meat, red meat. Sean, when does spring ball begin?
Well, they haven't officially said the first practice, but the week of March 27th, March 25th.
Yeah, we need to start it a little earlier than that.
So March 9th through 17th is spring break. And it appears they're going to have 1 week back where they kind of probably shake off the rust.
Okay.
And then they'll have 5 straight weeks of spring practice starting March 25th with the ever so popular 11 a.m. spring game on April 27th. And Nebraska did announce that, by the way. And the tickets will go on sale, I believe, next week for season ticket holders.
February 6th.
And there's been a price increase, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, $5 price increase.
And there's no more freebies. I mean, I think there's, it used to be a deal, which I always wondered, how did they police that? Like free tickets for kids. Like you could just automatically put the kids' tickets in your cart. So I believe now it's $5 for a child ticket.
Yeah, perhaps. I just know that they go on sale for season ticket holders on February 6th and regular people February 7th.
And it should do well. Now, it's an 11 a.m. game, and it's our understanding that was the choice of football. They kind of want to get the day going, get things rolling. It wasn't a BTN mandate.
No, it wasn't a TV deal at all. I think Rule wanted to have a lot of time after
on the back end
to devote to recruiting, which makes sense to me.
And I do get it, because I think when you try to do it on the front end of a deal like that, it's really busy. But on the back end, hey, the game's over.
Over.
You can have they'll probably have a big barbecue or lunch event, and they usually use that Hawks indoor center. They kind of set up a huge setup in there,
and big day. I mean, it's a big recruiting day.
Hopefully the snow will be fully melted by then.
It accommodates the other sports too. Isn't there baseball and softball going on that day as well? So, and Rule's, I think, cognizant of that. I think he wants to let them have their opportunity in the spotlight just because he's been so good about supporting other sports.
Well, they would never actually put the spring game head to head. What they usually do is kick the start time of baseball and softball a little bit later. So if the game was at 1, baseball would start at 4 or 4:30.
Yes, some of this is not speculation because Trev talked about it on his radio show. He said that Rule's good with it and that they want to. There's going to be baseball and softball games, and they want fans to be able to celebrate an entire day of Husker athletics. And then there'll be some other. He said there'll be some special event attached to it all that hasn't been announced yet. So that's what's going on.
You're listening here to the Husker Online show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washington, making our way through opening headlines. Coaches on the road still, one more week recruiting as well. And it's been a long January for them. They've had over 20-plus days out in January where they can be out with 11 coaches, 10 assistants, and then the head coach. Did confirm here right as we started, Glenn Thomas out on the road now this week for Nebraska. So the co-offensive coordinators, and I would expect both Marcus Satterfield and Glenn Thomas, they're expected to visit quarterback target Alex Mansky who has not visited Lincoln. He's visited Lincoln 5 times, but he's not been here since October.
Yeah.
So it is a little concerning, even though Mansky is a 3-sport athlete. He's a baseball player, he's a football player, and obviously a basketball player right now. Ed Foley was there last week to watch him play, but he is the prime quarterback target for 2025. But A&M's involved, and Iowa State are the other 2 players. K-State, is looked at as a player in there too. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how that meeting goes, assuming Glenn Thomas and Satterfield both go see Mansky here on this final week.
Algona, Iowa. That's where they would go. So he is still their top target, even though he hasn't been in town since October 21st. He didn't come to any junior days or anything like that.
And that let me that's not like out of the norm. I mean, look, there was one more month after in November. He didn't make a November home game. Okay. Recruits really didn't visit. Juniors didn't visit in December. He's a basketball player. What do you do every single Friday and Saturday in January if you play basketball? You have a game.
You box out. Do they still play Friday, Saturday?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, and in some form or
your day.
Well, we played Tuesdays, Thursdays, Friday. I mean, you never know. And with snow cancellations, you might have 4 games in a week. You might have 3 games in a week. So it's really tough if you're a high school basketball player. And Algona is not like going to Des Moines. It's a good haul. I mean, in Nebraska, my understanding is there's not an airstrip that they can land their plane in Algona.
Oh,
so they have to land it like 45 minutes away, then drive a car over to see him.
So this is still the guy, and we can't really say definitively who the plan B is.
No, I mean, nobody's really emerged at this point. And well, I do think the portal has made that a lot easier for you anyway. If you miss, okay, like look at running back. 2 years in a row, they theoretically missed on running backs. Like I don't consider Quentin Ives like their top choice guy. He was kind of a fallback guy, year 1 guy from Matt Rule. So they missed on like the prime running back season the previous year. They lost Keywan Lacey this last year. They were able to kind of rebound with Dante Daldell.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you want to get in that habit. And Matt Rule said they want to build with high school players, but it is a good stopgap.
Well, they've built with the receiver position, the offensive line,
right,
and now running back.
Right.
I mean,
and I'll tell you what, if you take those 6 guys away that they're bringing in from the portal, you wouldn't look at this team with as much optimism.
No,
I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, the portal's critical.
That's the nature of the business. I think the key is not just getting the one and done guys. Like you get developmental, like 2 or 3 year transfers, because then you can have a little bit of a balance there where you can still get the developmental part to it, to where you have guys that are in the program for multiple years while also getting guys that are a lot more ready to make immediate impacts when they arrive on campus.
Yep.
All right, we got a full show on tap. Abby Barmore is going to join us on the next segment here. A lot to cover and on the women's side, and we want to talk about softball out of the gates because this is going to be new for a lot of Nebraska fans. The Huskers are picked to win the Big Ten. Jordy Ball, one of the best players, if not the best in college softball, is a big reason why. Ticket requests are at an all-time high. They're trying to figure out ways to get more people over to Bullen Stadium this year because the requests are that high. We're going to get Abby's thoughts on softball, which is about a week away from kicking things off in Mexico. And by the way, Abby, you're not going to Mexico. We'll discuss that on the back end here. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Watcher, Abby Barmore joining us here in the conversation. But before we get to that, this segment, Stephen M. Sipple, is brought to you by
Larson Motors. It's slowed down out there a little bit, hasn't it? Holidays are over, right?
Is this an ad lib today? Are we going off the script?
No script today.
I like this.
I still got a script.
The glasses are up.
But you got a little more time on your hands. Make the trip. Make the trip to Nebraska City. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for that new experience in Nebraska City at Larson Motors. It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one spot. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Ford, Chrysler, Hummer, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram really has never been easier. Start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people, real deals.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve Sipple, for that unbelievable performance off the script today.
That's good.
Taking steps.
I'm fired up.
That Hummer.
There'll be a new one. There'll be a new one next week.
We drove right down by Nebraska City on the way to Kansas City, by the way. We were driving down to the airport.
It seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?
We also were at the same gas station. The guy had the skid loader that we missed him by a half hour.
The skid loader that went wild.
That
went wild and ran into a cop cruiser. Guy lost it. I had a little holiday.
I feel like that guy was on our message board this morning too.
Oh, great!
All right, let's get back on track here. Abby Barmore joining the conversation because we want to talk some women's athletics here. Lots going on. Obviously, women's basketball projected to make the NCAA tournament. Their track team, has a great chance to win the Big Ten indoors coming up. But I want to hit on this, Abby. Softball will begin the season in Mexico. They are currently, I think, no matter where you look, the only Big Ten team ranked at this point.
Yes, yeah. They're typically the top one, and they've been ranked as high as 13, low as 18, so kind of in that range there. But they're definitely the top Big Ten team for now. Washington and UCLA are above them, but we'll talk about that next year.
Okay, yeah. That's a year away.
Yeah.
It really puts it into perspective, though. Like, I think we hope and think that Nebraska can host a regional, but they've got to earn that regional. Like those Southern teams, have a lock on those super regionals. And, I think for Nebraska, if they could host a regional, that would be a huge step for this program.
Yes. And they would get a lot of fans. And I think there's going to be a lot of hype around this as we're going into. I mean, we're talking about it on the podcast. So I think that there's going to be a lot of love for softball, especially Nebraska softball. And you're right, those Southern teams and, even the teams in California, they really love softball. And here, volleyball is the tier sport for women's sports, but I think softball is definitely going to be coming up.
And they open in Mexico, and not this weekend, but the weekend after. And that's going to be kind of the tone setter. Am I wrong?
Yes, no, they have a great opportunity. I mean, they're playing Washington as their first game, who's ranked number 8, number 7. Team? And then Duke is number 11 is their next game. So we're going to be able to see what this team can do right away. And of course, they have some new players. They have a new first baseman and left fielder. So they'll have to find some chemistry a little bit and work together. But that's a great opportunity for them to start strong.
And Jordy Ball, she has 2 years of eligibility, right?
Correct.
So, this is going to be a 2-year thing where they can really catapult this program. I covered softball back in 2000.
2000.
And
taking us back, Sean.
They went to the World Series.
They did. In Oklahoma City?
I think it was, yeah.
Had to be. That's where they still play it.
But our beat was Todd Henrich, Liz Merrill, who's now at the ESPN, and myself. We were the 3 writers at the 2 papers.
Icons.
And the Daily Nebraskan. We staffed every game back then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the journal, if you really want to go back, I was the beat writer for softball in like 1990. See, don't look at me like that, Abby. It was. I think it was Ravel's like first season.
Wow.
First or second season, if you can believe that.
How old were you then, Abby?
In what year?
1990.
Minus something.
Yeah.
Minus
How many years away were you from being born?
Roughly 8.
Rob's having a good time over there.
I'm just happy for Rhonda, though, that she's going to get this opportunity these last 2 years. I mean, you talk about a first-class person that's been at Nebraska through multiple eras. I mean, you think about how she
went through some tough times, too. Got out of it, and now she's got Jordy Ball.
I think it's even more special that it's Jordy because she was committed to Nebraska from like 8th grade to her junior year, and she kind of got cold feet then. So they've had a really good relationship since she was like 14 years old, and they'd always stayed in touch, friendly. And so I think it's extra special that it's somebody that they love on and off the field.
Yeah,
she'll be a great leader for this team.
Yeah, I mean it pays in this era to stay in touch with recruits because it can wind back to you.
Finishing number 2 in a recruiting battle has never been more important.
Yeah.
Well, and her NIL here, she was probably doing fine at OU, but it's got to be legit here. And she doesn't need a collective, so to speak. I mean, I think Jordy Ball can get the organic NIL, not quite the Libby Dunn NIL, but legit deals.
Oh, for sure, Sean.
You're listening here to the Husker Online show. Abby, I do want to hit on volleyball too. we still don't have word on that spring match. Like what I mean, that's always been kind of one of the cooler things that John Cook does every year, as far as where they play the spring match, and they've played it in places like McCook. I'm trying to think where else they've played. It's Central City, Grand Island. Have they played in Kearney in the Viero Center there?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
That's what
so. Not that I remember.
I don't think so.
They've done it in Lincoln too, right? I mean, several times.
Yeah, they did Omaha before. Yeah, but they always try to get out on the road so that a different group of people can see them. The line for season tickets is so long, and so they try to branch out a little bit so everyone can enjoy Nebraska volleyball.
Pretty sizable news that Jordan Larson will return as a Nebraska assistant. What is put that in perspective for us, Abby?
I mean, her name carries a lot, but also her accomplishments, and she did. I think everyone expected her to do a very good job as an assistant coach, but she was a huge help for this team, especially for the outside hitters. There was definitely some lulls, and Allie Batenhorst had to step in after a big injury. So she did a great job of kind of getting Allie going and was a big part of her consistency and helping her with like the mental aspect of it. But also she worked a lot with Nebraska's passers. And as we know, that's one of the most important skills in volleyball. And Jordan is a great passer. I mean, she would serve to them in practice. I think if you can serve Jordan Larson serve, you could pass anything really. So I think that she's huge for this team, learning skills on and off the court and just the mental aspect of having to deal with so much pressure because she's played at the highest level for such a long time.
Still playing, 37 years old, and she'll be on the team that goes Olympic team that goes to Paris.
Yes. Yeah.
37 years old, still cranking. That's pretty good.
She's like the Sue Bird of the Olympic volleyball team. Because Sue Bird, didn't Sue Bird win like 4 gold medals in basketball?
Sounds right.
Jordan won one in 2020 with the volleyball team, and they'll go after a second gold.
Yeah, that was the first ever gold that they won in indoor volleyball. There was 3 Huskers on that team.
Justine Wong-Arantes.
Yes,
and Kelsey Robinson.
And Abby, watch. I mean, I caught part of that Supernovas match on TV, and
you did.
Just the when you watch like people of Larson's caliber, the passing and the block at that level, it's at a different level.
Yes,
like you do not see bad passes at that level of volleyball.
It is so fun to watch. I love going to that Supernovas game because there are so many great players. All the players were great, and it was so fun to see, especially players that I don't get to watch a lot that were from, different countries or something, but also ones that Husker fans are familiar with, like Brooke Nunneveller, who did pretty well against the Huskers in the Sweet 16. She played at Oregon. So, yeah, that is such a fun team to watch, and I think that league is going to play a lot of really great volleyball.
At that level, too, it's amazing. It's not as much about the power sometimes. It's about how you hit it and where you hit it as much as how hard you hit it.
Yes, exactly. Especially when, like you said, there's so many good passers and people, if you get a block touch on it, then you're pretty much going to get a perfect pass. So it's a lot about like the technique of hitting, and you have to be smart and place your balls well because of how good everybody is.
All right. Well, exciting times. Appreciate Abby's contributions to women's sports. If you haven't read it, on Mondays, Abby does her women's sports roundup column. It is a must read and a great way to catch up on everything happening with Husker women's athletics. When we come back, a few small roster moves happened on Nebraska football. There's also been some movement in the Big Ten coaching ranks. We're going to hit on all that next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washed, as we make our way through a few small roster moves, guys. I want to hit on happened here. Nebraska didn't announce any of these. They just updated their official Huskers.com roster, and linebacker Kane Williams no longer listed, as well as Ethan Piper, offensive lineman. Now, Kane Williams, I think if you were trying to zone in on attrition that made sense, he was a guy that made sense. The question now is, would he enter the portal, or does he just kind of take the early retirement package and finish up his academics at Nebraska? If you remember, he was the one that came to Nebraska from Alabama, really because of the connection to Mickey Joseph. He was from the same hometown, Moreno, Louisiana, as Mickey Joseph grew up in. Then Ethan Piper, who tore all 3 ligaments in his knee, officially not listed on that spring roster.
Yeah, as far as Kane Williams goes, he's just kind of a tweener. I mean, he's between a linebacker and probably a safety, and not perfect at either one. Piper, this might signal the end of his career.
He might, he could end up being like a student coach.
Yeah, I think that's the next step for him in some capacity.
Matt Rule wants him around this
He'll be
team.
around.
If he wants to be around, he'll be around.
Yeah.
And for the record, Kane Williams played 8 snaps last season, all against Northern Illinois.
Okay. I mean, like I said, he's a tweener. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Isaiah Garcia Castaneda does remain on the roster. I know there's always been questions kind of where he fits, especially with the new Isaiah Nayor addition
and Jamal Banks.
Now, Castaneda, I believe, can be a walk-on because of the way he came in. Now they can do NIL things now, so I don't know if that really dings their numbers one way or the other with him on there. But Jason Machacek, and then who's the other guy on the
Ruquan Buckley?
Oh, sorry,
Ruquan Buckley.
Oh, Buckley.
What were you going to say?
Well, then isn't there some
Mason Goldman's defensive line?
Okay, Mason Goldman's defensive
line.
They've
kind of moved him back and forth.
Right. I get confused on that one. Buckley to me is very interesting because he was earmarked as a defensive lineman coming in. Rule talked about him and expressed a lot of optimism for him as an offensive lineman. That's definitely one to watch. And I would now, you guys, my thought would be he'd be an interior offensive lineman.
I think guard makes a lot of sense.
Looks like it to me.
6'5", 295 is what he's currently listed at.
I want to see what that looks like.
Whether he factors in the 2 deep or not is probably the discussion. I don't think we're looking at Ruquan Buckley as a starter.
I don't think so. He would really have to. I mean, that's what spring ball is about.
Well, Micah Mazuka is going to take a starting guard spot.
One guard. What's the other guard?
So then you have Latoski, Justin Evans Jenkins, possibly Turner Corcoran.
You got it. Yeah.
I mean, you've got options, and Sam Sledge.
Yeah. There's a lot there.
So they have an option, but getting Mazuka really kind of like cools things down on that guard position. Just knowing that you've got a proven. Essentially, another version of Ben Scott joining the team.
Yeah, if Mazuka comes in the right frame of mind and ready to work and fit in, he'll be a starting guard. I mean, but you got to see he's got to do it.
He's a tough kid.
Yeah, he's got to do it. That's I'm looking forward to spring ball. I mean, this is a great discussion, and it illustrates why. Because there's some spots there that there's going to be some pretty serious competition.
And we haven't heard anything. I mean, I reached Mazuka and he just declined interview. He's kind of a no-nonsense kid so we don't really know much about why he's coming here, what's going on with him.
He'll fit in with Raiola.
But he's you saw the video of him in the fist fight against Tennessee.
Yeah, we squared up on the dude.
How'd that look? How'd that look?
Like he's about to box.
Did he look tough?
Look like a boxer. You're the resident boxer.
Yeah, you can critique his form.
Yeah, it was as good as Kellen Houston. And
that was a sucker punch.
No, well, it was a great chopping punch. I don't know. Maybe it was a sucker punch.
God, and that kid.
They showed it about 100 times on CNN that day. I know
that is the ultimate Brad Painter example of what could go wrong on a court storming. Brad Painter talked about
things
100%. That happen. Imagine
Matt Painter.
I called him Brad Painter.
Brad Painter.
Get your Brad Underwood and Matt Painter mixed up.
Matt Painter.
Who's the 7'4" guy again? Zach Edey. Imagine if Zach Edey just was furious and just starts going like Godzilla on the court and just starts
hit the dude on the top of the head.
Just starts swinging around his body at like innocent bystanders.
Just goes Godzilla. No, you're right though. That Missouri game was 2000. What year was it? Good God, Sean, I'm trying to get you out of this. What year was the Kellen Houston punch?
I'm trying to get you out of this.
2002, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll never forget it.
2 or 4, I can't remember.
I'll never forget it because they played it on CNN the next day, all day long.
Was Bill Callahan the coach or Solich?
Seems like Frank to me.
03.
That's what it was. At Missouri, and there was a field storming, and somebody approached Kellen Houston, who was a defensive back, and I was amazed at how good his right hand was. I mean, it wasn't a
defensive. It was a kid. It was a innocent bystander.
I think the kid was innocent, or did he approach Houston in a aggressive manner? That's
probably yelled something at him.
Pop.
Well,
down he goes.
Then
down he goes.
Brad Smith checked on the kid. You remember?
Yeah. It was quite the scene. One more note on Buckley for going back to actually talking about the current team.
Please.
So about his offensive line experience, he's played O-line going back to high school. In fact, he was one of 8 offensive linemen statewide in the state of Michigan, named to the Coaches Association 2020 Dream Team.
Wow.
So he's got high school experience on the O-line. So this isn't just a totally random position change for him.
So yeah, I guess the main thing I'm interested in is he a guard or a tackle?
I think
Seems like they need more tackles.
I think tackle is a much more difficult thing to just jump into. I think guard, if you're big and strong, you'll do okay.
All right, a couple of Big Ten coaching notes I want to hit on.
Oh yeah,
Iowa has named their offensive coordinator Tim Lester, former Western Michigan head coach, who's been an analyst for the Green Bay Packers. You know, and this doesn't have the sense of like this was their first choice.
No, in fact, the Athletic termed it as a polarizing hire for the fan base.
It's like a Mark Whipple type hire for fair. I mean, he's an RPO shotgun guy, and the question is like, how much autonomy is he going to have with what they do? Because Cade McNamara could run all that kind of stuff, but do they want to run all? Iowa has a good team coming back.
Tim Lester, it's an interesting hire. Like you said, head coach at Western Michigan. Now, their offenses were good. He had 4 offenses that were top 35 offenses at Western Michigan. He's 47. I do like the idea of having head coaching experience. Not everybody agrees with that. I like it because he ran a team. Didn't just run an offense. He ran an entire team, ran an entire operation. I don't think he'd go in there and try to take over the program. I wouldn't worry about that. So the reason I think Iowa fans would be maybe somewhat disappointed is, Paul Chryst was a name that they considered. And I think Chris essentially, it seems
he was
like,
interested. I was told his wife wasn't fully on board with moving out to Iowa. They like Texas.
Why would you want to? It is kind of silly that you'd want to live in Austin, Texas over Iowa City.
Well, and
that went over your head. Sean, why would you live in Iowa City when you can live in Austin, Texas? Come on.
Austin can be different for some people.
True. A little more than
Paul Chryst.
You got to be wired the right way
as a 6th Street kind of guy.
No, but the weather's a little better.
Yeah, okay. From a climate standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
traffic's
let's face it, the elephant in the room is Kirk Ferentz's future.
Like, yes.
Like you don't want to be Tommy Rees leaving Notre Dame to go to Alabama, and then Nick Saban retires. Like if you're an offensive coordinator of note to go work for Kirk Ferentz, and then, oh, by the way, that's his last year there, your first year. Then your whole career is in jeopardy.
Yeah, Lester, though, it was either going to be Iowa or Troy. He could have been Troy's OC.
Probably half the pay, if not.
Maybe not even half.
He's going to get $1 million at Iowa.
Right.
Iowa has to pay because they were getting to the point where it's like they went the whole recruiting period without an offensive coordinator.
So, yeah, Tim Lester. There it is.
And then Sharon Moore, kind of the least shocking one is the Michigan head coach. I don't think anybody is surprised. I don't even know if it got to any other candidate.
Well, I can tell you that Ward Manuel did not interview anybody else. He said he considered other candidates, but there was no other interviews. It's amazing what Michigan, if you just stop and think what's happened at Michigan. Sharon Moore was part of the NCAA infractions that had to do with recruiting. In fact, nobody remembers it or thinks about it, but Sharon Moore was suspended the first game of the season. So what I'm trying to tell you is the power of winning is incredible, and Michigan illustrates it. Harbaugh had 3 separate scandals he was juggling at once, and Michigan put a contract in front of Harbaugh that was 6 years, $11.5 million a year, and basically begged him to stay. Even with all those infractions, and then they hired internally. They hired a guy who was suspended for the opener. You don't, if you win, all that stuff doesn't
I'm more
matter.
interested in how many assistants will follow Harbaugh, like what the final tally is.
Like Jesse Minter's going to follow him, the defensive coordinator, and the key one is gone, the strength coach. His name is Herbert, and he went with him, and that was huge. That's like his right hand.
Michigan and Washington, 2 teams that played for the national championship, are going to be lucky to win 8 games next year.
Ooh, 8.
Look at Michigan's schedule and look at Washington lost.
Yeah.
Look at
Michigan lost a lot too.
I'm not saying Michigan's not a top 25 level team, but they have one of the hardest schedules.
And they lost a lot. They did lose a lot of personnel.
And look,
they haven't even started their roster attrition either.
Right. You'd have to, when I saw an initial list of people they've lost, and it's significant.
Mm-hmm. So lots to keep up on. We come back, take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. We're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, and back for our second segment. It's a big 2-segment Abby Barmore day.
Big
Abby,
day.
It's a big day.
Big day.
We even moved Larson Motors out of the way early to make sure mailbag had ample opportunity.
Even more time for me. Good.
Where we
That's the way
going?
I like it.
Start us out in the
Okay.
mailbag.
First one. Do you think that Nebraska football is going to finish in the top half of the conference next season?
That is a really hard question to
Top
answer.
half.
Mm.
So top 9.
18 teams.
I think there's
I think they have the schedule. I do think they have the schedule that will allow them to get there, but it's going to require them, obviously, that first 7 games. What can they get out of it?
Yep.
And then can they get another one on the back end, whether it's UCLA or Iowa or Wisconsin? I mean, I'm chalking up Ohio State and USC as losses on the road.
Okay.
And then that back half of UCLA, that's a really tough game on the road. I'm sorry, it's in Lincoln. Excuse me.
Lincoln, not a tough game.
That's a game in Lincoln that they have a chance to get, I think. And I do think the game against Wisconsin and Lincoln will be a tough game, but one they can get. And then Iowa to close the year. You don't know what that's going to bring, but can they get one out of those 3? I think that's going to be a big part of how the year finishes. And if they go 2-3 over that final 5 today, I would say I'd take that.
God, the big question is the rest of the league. I mean, it's easy for us to size up Nebraska because we size it up basically every day of our life. But I don't know exactly what some of these teams have back. I mean, it's hard to know.
Oregon and Ohio State are going to be the best 2 teams.
Looks like that. And then, but from there, I don't know. I mean, we say USC lost 5 games this year. I mean, they're not that good. I guess because you're going out to LA, it's tough.
Iowa has a chance
to be very good,
to be in that 3 to 5 group.
They won 10 games this year.
Like Iowa could
See
be
what that offense looks like.
Yeah.
Well,
it can't be worse.
I mean,
it literally can't be worse.
They have McNamara back healthy.
Yeah. And Luke Lachey back. They have all 5 offensive linemen back
with Caden Proctor.
Yeah. With adding Caden Proctor. So all offensive line stars back, adding Caden Proctor. They get Luke Lachey back. They have McNamara back. It won't be I don't think it'll be a bad.
They don't have Torrey Taylor.
That's true. That's true.
And they have a reasonable schedule.
Yes. But again, it's really hard to I can handicap Nebraska. I can't. I don't know what some of these other teams have.
How do you handicap Nebraska without knowing their quarterback situation? I mean, like what is Raiola going to be? I mean, like is he going to be a guy that can win 9 games?
They have the schedule to develop them. They're not going to Minnesota and Colorado to open a year.
Yep.
At night and on Big Noon kickoff back-to-back weeks.
But he's still a true freshman. You have no idea what you're going to get from him.
No.
Like
Sean, we think he'll be the starter though?
I think so. I think Dylan Raiola, if you want to write this down as just my take, he'll probably be the starter. Okay.
What world do you live in where you think he won't be the starter?
Well, I think the conversation in the Big Ten though, Oregon and Ohio State, I think we all agree are the playoff level teams, but there's probably 3 in this league.
What is the third one?
And that to me is the discussion today. It will change.
Is there a third one?
Well, somebody will get to 10-2, and that will be the third team. So is that USC? Is that Penn State? Is that Iowa?
State.
Could Michigan punch their way up to 10-2?
Yeah.
Like, and they have Texas. So if Michigan beats Texas early, that will help them. But I think the conversation today is who can be the third team in the playoff in the Big Ten.
I think that is. Who is that? Who is that team?
And I think it's wide open, but I think we know there's 2 favorites right now.
Penn State.
No, Oregon and Ohio State.
After that.
And then after that, like the third. I think Iowa is in that conversation. Okay. I would imagine Wisconsin feels like they can be in that conversation.
Okay.
Wisconsin cleaned up in the portal again. So, and they brought Alex Grinch on their staff.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to handicapping the league, except there's 18 teams now, and that's a lot of handicap.
Yeah, Big Ten Media Days is going to be like.
Where's that going to be, Sean?
I don't know. I mean,
is that an LA thing now?
I don't know about that. Indy seems like it's the spot.
We're going back to Indy, Rob.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, we got to
familiar.
I like Indy. I just don't like going to Indy.
We might be going to Indy twice during the season. Well, for sure for the Indiana game, but for Purdue, we might just stay in Indy too. It's hard to say.
Okay.
All right. Next question.
Okay. Next one. Does Nebraska have a true nose tackle on the roster to back up Nash Hutmacher?
Oh, Sua Lafatu.
Okay.
Ty Robinson can
I'll
play
go with
that, but Sua, I think, is the man in waiting.
Yep. I don't have anything to add. I think Sean's exactly right on that, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Is there somebody we're missing?
I'm looking at the roster right now. No, and maybe that's the issue.
You don't slide Van Poppel into that. I don't.
He could on like a passing
But
down.
Ty can play nose.
Yeah,
I think on true passing downs, you can be flexible, but on those run downs, you have to have a Nash in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Nash has gone to where he can play almost 40 snaps a game, where early in his career, 20 was a reach.
No doubt.
And now the 285-pound version of Nash Hutmacher, he's going to be in pretty good shape.
It's really a luxury to have he and Ty Robinson be able to play that many snaps.
No question.
Next question.
Okay.
Grown men.
Of the remaining regular season games, how many wins does Nebrasketball need to make the tournament? And is there a magic number of conference wins?
Let me ask you this, Robin. If they win out at home and don't win a road game, will they get in the tournament? Or will they need to win one game in Minneapolis?
Okay. Well, that would give you a win over Wisconsin. It would give you a win over
Michigan.
I'm just trying to think of like
Michigan's
ones that stand out to you. Beyond that, I don't know. So I don't think so. I mean, they need to get to 21, I think. I think 21 is your magic number. Now,
6 more.
you can get to 20. Yeah, they had 15 as of recording time Tuesday. You can still get to 20 because it's always about who you beat and where you beat them. So if they go and win 3 more on the road, all of a sudden that schedule looks pretty good. Because I think they've done enough to this point where as long as they avoid losses, any more losses like the Maryland one, they're going to be in a good spot. But I'm going to say 6 more to feel at least somewhat comfortable about your chances on Selection Sunday.
I mean, the schedule does lighten up a little bit now.
It does.
Who's their best winnable road opportunity?
Oh, I mean, you got Michigan, who's terrible. You got
They're terrible.
They are terrible. Indiana, they're a weird team that's
Kinda
struggling.
weird, yeah.
So I'd probably say Michigan is your best chance. Ohio State's kind of reeling right now, so they already beat them.
Northwestern will be a tough one.
Oh yeah, that's
Illinois will be a tough one.
These next 3, starting with Wisconsin on Thursday, once you get past Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, then that's when you need to make hay. So if they can just find a way to
Stay together,
get at least 1, hopefully 2 of those next 4, which easier said than done, then they will be in a really good spot going to the backstretch.
And they have to avoid day 1 of the tournament. I mean, like even last year, they were dang near around 500 in the league.
They will.
And they had to play day 1 still.
Yeah, they won't play day 1.
But nobody wins on the road in this league, so it feels like a 10-10 mark is fairly common now.
They don't. 3 teams won on the road last weekend. I mean,
Iowa won on the road.
Yeah,
Purdue won on the road, and
right.
Wisconsin won. I mean, Wisconsin and Purdue have like 75% of the road wins.
Yeah, and those are the 2 best teams in the conference. Yeah. And then Iowa will be
Minnesota won on the road. I mean,
Penn State, right?
That's who it
They
was,
beat Penn State on the road.
Yeah, it can happen.
Penn State's awful.
Yeah. Well, Minnesota's not great. They're not terrible though. I was actually taken by Minnesota.
They're
a little
fine.
bit. Yeah, they have a point guard. I will say that about.
Can the Big Ten get for sure 5? But can they get 6 or 7 bids too? Is a big part of the conversation.
I don't know about 7.
6 is probably where
I think 6 is safe. 5 for sure. 6 if things go well.
Okay.
And there's 4 established teams, and I feel like 5 and 6. There's about 5 teams that think they're those 2 teams.
Mm-hmm. And then it's
4 established teams.
flip.
Purdue, Wisconsin,
Illinois. Are you going to say Northwestern? They're established.
Was Northwestern the 4th spot? Would you say, Rob? Or?
They're in there. They're in there for sure. I mean, they're top 50. Iowa's in that conversation. Michigan State.
Michigan State's the 4th team.
Yeah,
that's the 4th team. They'll get in.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be a 10 seed, and everybody will pick them to go to the Sweet 16.
Yep, that's what
Sean's
they do.
Got this down.
That's what they do.
They'll be the sexy Sweet 16 10 seed pick, and they'll make the Sweet 16
probably,
and it will be like another Izzo special. All right, final question.
Boy.
All right, where is the most beautiful place you've ever seen in person?
I'll have to say Maui, Hawaii.
Okay.
Going on the road to Hana, we did I didn't drive it. It's the windiest road in the world.
Hana.
Yeah, you drive it's like a 10-hour type deal where you ride in like a bus, and I mean, you see just things that you could never imagine. I mean, the car drives like on high cliff highways where you're like inches away from coming off the road.
Oh, breathtaking stuff. Breathtaking.
Just, yeah, very, very unique. I mean, Ireland was special too, but we didn't have as much time to really delve into Ireland as you would have liked.
I don't know that was Ireland beautiful.
Well, because you just studied at Dublin. You got to go like in the countryside and the rolling green, majestic hills.
Okay.
Well, we went out to Hoth, and that was pretty.
You saw rolling.
We
green.
went like 10 minutes outside of town. It was awesome.
Yeah, you saw rolling green.
Stayed in the lobby bar the whole week.
Not all.
Ordered wings in Dublin every night in the lobby bar.
I did. The wings were tremendous.
They were good.
Thank
wings.
You.
They were good wings. I didn't get the wings in Dublin.
They ran out of them, by the way.
Because of you?
Yes. So from a tropical perspective, I'll say Costa Rica. If you go to the beach on the Pacific side, it's incredible.
You've been to Colombia.
Yeah. Different. It's not like it's a different vibe, as you might expect.
There was
really cool. But then the other, I'll go like non-tropical and say Garmisch, Germany.
Okay.
Like if you think of like the movie Frozen, like the Alps and all that sort of thing, like that's the mountains that they have there. And I climbed around on those mountains, and I was so underprepared for that.
How so?
One of the scariest experiences of my life.
What,
it's like
what happened?
You're on a cliff with like the biggest slope ever, and there's like just little metal poles in the side of the mountain, and you're clipping on to like a cable, like an iron cable, and you have to step on a pole, unclip to get over the thing that's holding the cable on. And so like you're basically just going like that up this wall of mountain. And I was like, I'm just like wearing like running shoes and jeans. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is so regrettable. And so
you made it though.
I made it about 75% of the way up, and I was like, no.
Then what?
I can't. Then I had to go down.
Really?
It's just as sketchy, probably more so.
Was there like a person like trying to help you down?
My cousin-in-law, who's like some special forces, like G.I. Joe guy, like he's just up there like not even clipped in, just like jumping around.
I need to hear this story in case I've ever faced with that situation and say, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, it could have been worse.
Right. I've heard some stories like that from people who get in those mountain situations, think it's easy, and
it starts easy, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have to do this. Yeah. What are you going to do? Turn around?
I'm not as well traveled as you, but I've been to a lot of the Caribbean islands, and Barbados I liked Barbados the most, partially because it's just sort of a personality quirk. Barbados, there's some on the Pacific or on the Caribbean side. The water's like it's like a bathing, like a bathtub, which I hated. But there's an Atlantic side where the waves come in super hot and high, and that's fun. And that part of the island's gorgeous. So there was some Caribbean islands I've been to I didn't like because they're on the Caribbean, and the water's flat and it's not very fun. But Barbados.
How did Memphis stack up for you this last weekend?
In terms of beauty?
Yeah, I'm just giving you our time.
Beale Street's kind of neat. I mean, Beale Street's super cool. Memphis is it's a tough period. Beale Street's not doing good business right now. We don't need to talk about that.
That's for
sidetrack.
It's not. I wouldn't list that as one of the beautiful places I've been to. I had fun for all the Memphis listeners. I did. It was fun. We loved it. We
checked out the Peabody.
Yeah, saw ducks and all that. And I like Beale Street. I loved it, actually. It's just they need more people there right now.
Abby, what's yours?
Actually, it's in Wyoming.
Where?
Laramie?
Like, I'm not going to tell you exactly where because I don't want to give it away. But it's like 45 minutes away from Cody, Wyoming. And my family, I was growing up, we went in like northeast, like northwest corner where it's like probably maybe 45 minutes away from Yellowstone, but there's like no people there. No cell reception. My family used to go every summer when I was growing up for 2 weeks. No cell reception, no real showers. And we would just hike and fish and enjoy time outside every day.
You go on
amazing.
You go on the big Barmore camping trip every year about, right?
Yes. We haven't the last couple of years because now all my siblings are have jobs.
That sounds amazing, by the way.
It's unreal.
It's a camping trip.
Incredible.
It's not a luxury trip.
Yes, no, we stay in a camper on just public land.
Okay.
And literally no cell reception at all.
That's interesting.
I mean, you have a camper toilet for 2 weeks. We kind of get tired of each other after a while.
I can see that.
Especially now that we're all bigger. Me having to sleep on a bunk bed for 14 days.
Ooh, that'll kind of.
But it is so beautiful and so nice.
Wyoming is one of the most underrated states in the union.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
All right, guys. Well,
wow, that was good stuff.
Great discussion. When we come back, we're going to close with some more Nebraska basketball talk. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here, the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, closing out with some more basketball discussion, and arguably the toughest week left on the schedule of the regular season for Nebraska ball waits. Obviously, the big home game Thursday night against Wisconsin, who, Robin, they're number 6 now. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a 2 to a 3 seed coming in, every bit as tough as Purdue was a few weeks back. And then you go to Illinois,
tough games,
who they're back at full strength now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They got
Terrence Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon back after that temporary suspension. So yeah, this starting with the Maryland game, which clearly did not go well. That 4-game stretch of Maryland, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern. That's the last true grind if you look at just where it compares to the rest of the schedule. And after that, it eases up in theory quite a bit. So this is kind of the one of the last defining stretches in the sense of Nebraska keeping its head above water. I mean, we kind of talked about this in the mailbag a little bit, but just to be able to get 1, maybe 2 out of those 4, I think you're still in a good spot. But for that, if you're only getting 1, you better make hay with the way things lighten up down the stretch, with that home schedule and the fact that you have some winnable road games, or at least more attainable road games for this team. Nothing's easy for this group, but I mean, it's as disappointing as the Maryland loss and the Rutgers loss, the Iowa loss were. Nebraska's still in a good spot. They still are able to control their own destiny just with the way that the rest of the schedule shapes up. But man, over these next 3, if you can find a way to beat Wisconsin at home or find a way to go to Northwestern and steal one finally on the road against a team that you've already beaten, you've proven that you can beat them, man, that would do a lot to put yourself further in the driver's seats to punch in that ticket.
Was the start of the Maryland game almost just too good to be true, the way they hit jump shots, kind of a finesse style? Then Maryland's like, all right, enough with this shooting competition. We're just going to muck it up and make you play our style.
I think the difference was Maryland, the worst 3-point shooting team in the conference, all of a sudden started lighting them up from 3, and then Nebraska cooled off and Maryland didn't. And I know a lot of people are very critical, and just understandably so, about Nebraska's 3-point defense and the way that they always double the post and crash whenever the ball gets touched inside, leads to easy kickouts from the post or wide open 3-pointers off offensive rebounds. And the reason they do that and kind of refuse to go away from that is because they're so concerned about getting guys like Rink Mass in foul trouble.
Okay.
They don't want to leave him one-on-one in the post to get fouls because they don't feel good enough about their depth.
Well, now with
offensively,
Gary out,
and just because of how critical Rink is to everything they do on the other end of the floor. Right. Not only he's one of their best scorers, one of his best 3-point shooters, he leads them in assists.
Get him in foul trouble.
You can't have him on the bench with fouls, and so they try to protect him.
Yep.
And so, with that, there's such a heavy reliance on them to rotate as efficiently as possible, close out as aggressively as possible, and challenge those shots. And when that's not happening, which on the road, it hasn't happened a lot, that leads to those so many wide open looks for the other team.
Wisconsin obviously had its way with Nebraska in Madison. Nebraska did, Sean, shoot the ball that day.
They shot 50%, scored 72 points on the road.
Right. They shot the ball really well. They played. I don't even
couldn't defend anybody.
Not only did they not get steals, they didn't even get deflections in that game.
Nah. So, everything was easy.
But
Wisconsin could do whatever it wanted, but inside and out.
But wouldn't you agree? I think it'll look much different.
Oh yeah,
because Nebraska looks much different.
They're
at PBA.
A different team at home.
Yeah,
you can't take what happened on the road and translate. So that works both ways. To say, while Nebraska played Northwestern well, they're going to play them on the road well.
Wow.
You can't make that distinction.
Right.
But in a situation like this, I like Nebraska's chances a whole lot more in PBA than I did up in Madison. And, Ken Palm has him as a 3-point underdog, which against the number 6 team in the country, it's a pretty good spot to be in.
Not bad at all. And I was saying off air, and I was kind of being facetious, but it just seems incredibly predictable that Nebraska will win this game. I mean,
like the Purdue game. They had to win the Purdue game, and they figured out a way to win it.
Yeah, they'll have to do it. I think if Nebraska wins, it'll be close. I don't know if they could sprint off from Wisconsin.
Well, Wisconsin just does so many things offensively. It starts inside with Crowell and Wall, but now they have those shooters around them where, of course, Nebraska once again was the remedy for Esijan, who had almost been written off completely out of their rotation. All of a sudden he comes in and hits like 4 or 5 3-pointers. And so that's what Nebraska can't afford to do. Their focus is going to be stopping the inside, but they cannot let those perimeter shooters from Wisconsin have so many open looks the way they did in Madison. Because then Nebraska's scrambling to challenge shots, and then boom, wide open layup, which it was like Wisconsin could literally pick whatever it wanted in that game. I mean, they scored 88 points, probably could have scored 100 if they wanted to.
I'll offer no predictions. I said that I said there's no way in the world Iowa will cover. It was 4. Iowa led Nebraska 17-2 out of the shoot. I'm done with predictions. It feels like a close game to me, though.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Nebraska, like you said, -3. I just think it'll go down to the wire.
Yeah, and it's all going to come down to how Nebraska defends. I think their offense is going to be fine. I think they're going to shoot it well enough to put themselves in position to score enough to win. It's a matter of can they be anywhere more aggressive defensively and make life just a little bit more uncomfortable for Wisconsin.
And Fred said on his radio show that he says it's about he said, I guess on the road, it's about the glass and taking care of the ball, but they'll have to take care of the ball. They had 18 turnovers against Maryland. They don't really turn the ball over at home much either, though, right?
They did against Northwestern. They had 18 turnovers, but they won the glass. So if you do either of those things, you're going to have a chance. If you lose both of those areas, you're going to lose.
All right, guys. Sorry to cut it short here, but we
you're
went
fine.
so long in Mailbag. We got before we wrap it up, make sure you check out HuskerOnline.com. We got a great special right now. Get 2 months of access for $1 by simply using promo code NU1. That's 2 months for $1 with promo code NU1 for Steven Sipple and Robin Washut. I'm Sean Callahan. Make sure you check out HuskerOnline.com for all of the latest.